Okay. So, a few things that are crucial to point out here. The first one is future of value. The value part here is often misunderstood by students. And, I think Marquis is clear on it, but there's a longer version of this article that's more clear. I bet you're glad you read the shorter one, though. But this is something you have to understand. Value that Marquis is talking about is not value to other people. It is that the fetus itself will come to value its present and future later on when it grows up. If value meant value to others, which, let me repeat, it does not mean value to other people in Marquis. If it did, though, if future of value meant future value to other people, then Marquis's argument would mean that you can kill anyone who's useless to society. You see why that's absurd? This is why I was going to say philosophy, but in all things, you have to think through the implications, the total results of your ideas. If you think abortion is wrong because the fetus one might discover the cure for cancer, then what you're saying, the implication of that is, human lives are valuable when they do something for other people. Which by sort of reverse implication means human lives aren't valuable, or at least are less valuable, if they don't contribute to other people. So you hear people saying that argument a lot, and I've just shown you why it's not a great argument either. The point here is that Marquis is not saying that. He is not saying you can't kill the fetus because it might be useful or loved in the future to other people. Because what that would mean is the fetus that isn't going to grow up to be loved can be aborted. That's not what he says. And the fetus that doesn't discover the cure to cancer, which is all of them so far, is also not worth saving and is worth killing. Okay. So value for him in his argument is that the fetus itself will come to enjoy its life, projects, experiences, projects, etc. in the future. Okay, so a few questions here, a few follow-up questions. And these are all just things to think about. What happens if the fetus doesn't value its future? What if at some point the fetus says, man, I'm so bummed out, I wish I was never born? Right, so 16, a lot of 16-year-olds go through that. My life sucks, I wish I was never born. Do you think for him that would mean that the parents could have aborted that fetus? Probably not, right? That would be a very weird moral argument. What he means instead is that if there's anything waiting in your future that you either now look forward to, or even if you don't currently look forward to it, at some point in the future you will value it, then it's not right for us to take that away from you. So we can add a sort of tricky follow-up question to Marquis too. What about some fetuses that would be born into such a bad situation that it seems probable that there wouldn't be much of anything to look forward to in their lives? Or that overall, it seems like their life would be something they wish hadn't have happened, even though, there's a few good moments. So what do you think Marquis would say about that? You see, too, how his argument gets around the problems of the other two he talked about? You don't have to make a factual claim about whether a fetus currently has a soul. You don't have to rely on it having human DNA. Can you say, does the cancer tumor, which does have human DNA, does it have a future of value? No, because cancer cells are not conscious. They don't enjoy things that they do. Does it matter whether the fetus currently has a soul or not? No, because in the future, it's going to be the kind of thing, soul or not, that it looks forward to its life. Same thing, the problem with the pro-choice side, which says that abortion is acceptable or permissible, is that it seems arbitrary that they say, well, newborns a 3-day-old newborn. You can't kill them. You can't touch them. But 3 days before it's born, oh yeah, feel free. Right? Because Marquis has this future built in where it doesn't matter whether the thing is doing, full-grown personhood stuff now. It certainly will at some point in the future. So you see, he gets to avoid the thorny question of what a fetus is and what kind of capacities it has now, because he's talking about it in the future. So let's connect that to something sort of confusing he says on page 323, going over to 324. He talks there about why it's wrong to inflict pain on animals. Try to think through what his point is there. It's hard to see, but try to think through for a second what his point is there. It's not about abortion directly. Okay, he's not saying abortion is wrong because it inflicts pain on the fetus. Because if inflicting pain were morally wrong, none of us would be able to eat meat. You also wouldn't be able to play football. Or soccer, all sports involve some pain to the other team, usually. His point there is just about the symmetry of how arguments work. His point is that it's wrong to inflict pain on animals, whether or not they're human, whether or not they're animal. Because there's no point for this other argument in doing something mean for no good reason. His only point is this: it doesn't matter whether the fetus is human or a person or not. It only matters if it's the kind of thing that will come to value itself in its future at some point. Okay. So here's another detail that Marquis says, and this will help you understand what he means by future value. He says that euthanasia is okay under his account. And he says that on page 323a. He says, if someone is terminally ill, and if someone is in a great deal of suffering, and if they don't value their life anymore, then at that moment they do not have a future of value, because they no longer are looking forward to anything that they might do in the future. So he says euthanasia is acceptable under his account. Remember, it's not human life. That's not the issue. It's not killing humans. That's the issue. It's removing valuable futures from things that value themselves. If the person no longer values anything that might happen in their future, he says it's fine for them to kill themselves. Not for us to kill them, by the way, but for them to kill themselves. So question on that is, do you think he's being consistent? Fetuses can't die, but adult humans who are sick can die? Do you feel like he's applying his argument consistently there? You also see, at the very end of the article, that he says, oh, contraception's fine too. Contraception's fine. That's page 325. Because he says, preventing a future from showing up is different than taking away a future from a thing that already has it. So he says, think about a sperm and an egg. They don't have a future yet. Now, this is another part that clarifies what he means about abortion, even though it's not strictly about abortion itself. He says contraception, the pill, condoms, etc., is morally acceptable because it does not take away any future. Now, a lot of students here think, well, yeah, there's a future, right? Because those things can turn into a fetus, and a fetus has a future. But this is what he says. He says, okay, well, where's the future? Is it in the egg or the sperm? You go, well, it's not in either. And he says, exactly. There's not yet the kinds of things that have a future of value. Because remember, future for him does not just mean will the thing show up in time later on. Because then rocks would have a future, right? It's future of value that at some point these things will recognize what they are, enjoy what they are, and want to hold on to that. Basically, to value something, you have to be conscious at some point in the future. A sperm and an egg never reach that level of consciousness. only when they combine and certain other things happen, then there's a possibility of the future coming about, a future of value. Right? This is why you always have to read the whole article carefully. A lot of people get to what he first says. I see this in papers all the time. And they will quote, like their life depends on it, the first line where he says his stance. Future of value, activities, projects, etc. Then they will go on to try to explain it, and they misread him on every step of the way. Not because they're dumb or, nothing like that, right? It's just that there's other parts in the article that really fill out and give detail to what he means. Contraception makes it really clear that future doesn't just mean in time, but basically has to mean consciousness in the future. And the euthanasia point really makes it clear that he's not saying the fetus is a human person and that's why we can't kill it. Because he's saying a human person who has no future left because they're dying can kill themselves. Okay? So reading those carefully will show you what he means by the more important part, the core of his argument, that comes earlier. So here's one last question, and I've asked this to my students on Facebook before, and last time I asked it, it's because we discovered a planet not too far away. I mean, it's really far away, but it's only a few thousand light years away, I think. And it seems to be the kind of planet on which life could grow. There's probably water on it, it's the right temperature, all that stuff. So Marquis points out that aliens probably have a future of value just like us, right? Aliens probably have a future of value just like you and I do. He says that on page 322, the second column B. He says, yeah, that's why it would be wrong to kill aliens for no reason if they came to Earth. Right? They just show up on Earth and they wave at us, and with their 9 eyes they look around, and we just start stabbing them. That would be wrong. Why? Not because they're human. They're not. Not even because they're rational or they can sign contracts. I mean, they haven't talked to us yet. But just because they probably want to get back on their ship and go back home. They're looking forward to that. You can't take away things that they look forward to unless you've got a darn good reason. Okay, so those are the sort of detailed further applications of Marquis. And once we look at those, I think it reveals to students a lot more what he means. Some students, it makes what he's saying more clear and they like him even better. Some other students, they'll go, wait a second, I don't know if he's being consistent. For all that fanfare, they say, of what makes a good moral argument, when they learn more about it through aliens, euthanasia, and contraception, they start to think that maybe he's not applying it all that well himself. And one final detailed point is this. Marquis says, since it's not about being a human, and it's not about being a person, but about basically enjoying your life now and being able to enjoy it in the future, he says, some animals might also appreciate their futures as we do. Not all of them. Your goldfish is not going to have this. But maybe higher primates, maybe elephants, maybe dogs even. So remember, the things that he says when he describes what a future of value is. The question I have for you now, the final question for Marquis, is do you think some animals also value their futures in the way that he describes? If so, then that means it's wrong to kill those animals, that it would be like murder and abortion, that it would be morally wrong because it takes away a future of value from something else. So I want to ask that question. Are there animals that you think are sufficiently like human beings so that it's morally wrong to kill them? Okay? And that'll be our final question. If it's wrong to kill human beings in certain circumstances, which it clearly is, when is it wrong to kill animals? Or which animals is it wrong to kill? Okay, thank you everyone.